Given how many massive AAA games that are coming out in the coming months and years, it's no surprise that there's no shortage of smaller games getting lost in the noise. When you take a deeper look though, you realize that a lot of these smaller games probably deserve more attention than they've been getting. Here, we're going to take a look at a few upcoming promising looking single-player titles that you should probably be paying attention to. Angerfoot. There might be plenty of first-person shooters coming out in the near future, but we doubt many of them will be as gleefully weird as Free Lives and Devolver Digital's Angerfoot. There's a lot of fast-paced running and gunning here, and that's looking suitably exciting, but Angerfoot's USP is the fact that kicking enemies is just as central to the gameplay. Combining your movement, fast-paced shooting, and kicking action might come together very well in what's looking like a very intriguing game. The Last ORICRU. There's something about a massive RPG that's just so hard to turn away from, and Gold Knight's The Last ORICRU very much seems to fit that bill. Its setting is looking like an interesting blend of sci-fi and fantasy. While on the gameplay front, The Last ORICRU is promising choice-based storytelling, a deep and challenging combat system, and even couch co-op support. Whether or not the game will be able to do justice to its ambitions remains to be seen. The CHANT. There's a barrage of horror games lined up for launch in the upcoming months. We're going to be speaking about a number of them here, in fact. And though Brass Token's The CHANT might not be as high profile as something like, let's say, Resident Evil, it still looks promising. Set on a remote island retreat where you find yourselves trapped with members of a cult and horrific eldritch monstrosities, the third-person action-adventure game could prove to be something of a dark horse. IXION. As a city builder, IXION is an inherently niche game, but those who enjoy the genre will definitely want to keep an eye on it. You play as the administrator of a space station that's drifting through space, and are in charge of maintaining, expanding, and constructing the station further, while dealing with the perils of outer space, from hull breaches and resource management to interstellar exploration and dealing with other threats you might encounter. It's a fascinating concept, and we're excited to see how it turns out in the end. Ad Infinitum. Ad Infinitum is putting its historical World War I setting to use in an interesting way. The upcoming first-person horror game places you in the shoes of a soldier who, understandably enough, is tortured by the traumas he's witnessed and experienced. Mixing psychological horror and a historical setting with some mysterious and seemingly supernatural elements, Ad Infinitum is looking like a unique mix. Fuga, Melodies of Steel 2. The original Fuga Melodies of Steel is definitely something of an underground hit, but though it may never have caught on popularity in any significant way, its sequel is a game worth keeping an eye on. The turn-based tactics JRPG is making some very interesting promises, from a revamped battle system to enhancing the strategy experience to new events and choices that'll affect the story. And of course, it's got that solid art style, same as its predecessor. Routine. Sci-fi horror is a subgenre that's sort of been missing in action in video games for a few years, but it seems like it's making a comeback. Of course, the likes of Dead Space and the Callisto Protocol are going to dominate that space, but on the more small-scale end of the spectrum, Routine is a game that looks promising. Set in an abandoned lunar base, the game will task you with unraveling the story's mysteries, evading terrifying enemies, and solving hacking puzzles. We're certainly keeping an eye on this one. Nobody's Left. We've been seeing stunning examples of impressive game development achievements by solo developers with greater frequency, and it feels like Nobody's Left may very well join the list. Developed by Mokakzad, the game is set in a war-stricken country that's been rendered almost completely uninhabitable, with players playing as a bounty hunter caught in a conflict between two opposing factions. The gameplay footage we've seen has been looking promising so far, and this setting certainly catches the eye, so here's hoping it lives up to its potential. The Invincible. Starward Industries' The Invincible has been in development for a couple of years at this point, and every time we've seen more of it, we've grown more excited about the prospect of playing it. Players take control of astrobiologist named Yasna, who finds herself stranded on a hostile alien planet, separated from her crewmates. With the promise of some genuine thrills and scares and story with a heavy cosmic and philosophical bent, this could turn out to be a rather unique experience. KONA 2, BRUME. The original KONA might not be a game you've heard of, but people who have played it will tell you that it was a solid experience in its own right. With developer Parable looking to build on the original's foundation, we can't help but be a little intrigued by KONA 2 BRUME. The core loop of investigation and exploration seems to be shaping up well, while the promise of an engaging story in a wintry setting also catches the eye. Miasma Chronicles. As the developer of turn-based tactics game Mutant Year Zero, indie studio The Bearded Ladies demands attention from quite a few people, which means its upcoming game Miasma Chronicles probably has more eyes on it than most other games on its list. And sure enough, it seems like a game worth keeping an eye on. Combining real-time exploration with turn-based tactics and RPG elements, the gameplay mix here is a compelling one, but it's the post-apocalyptic setting and its more mystical elements that are turning the head. Our expectations for Miasma Chronicles are certainly high. Wronged Us. We've spoken about sci-fi horror, World War I horror, horror on a remote island. Now, let's talk about open-world survival horror, which is what Delusional Studios' upcoming Wronged Us is. Set in a small town, Wronged Us will combine psychological horror with actual monsters that you'll need to deal with. With a focus on exploration and cinematic storytelling, there's a lot we don't know about the game yet, but those are definitely interesting elements to be putting together. Here's hoping it puts them all together properly. Project M. When developer NCSoft announced Project M earlier this year, it described the game as an interactive movie experience, which means there might be something here for fans of games like Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human. The only trailer we've seen for the game so far showcases some surprisingly impressive visuals and motion capture work. So if the game can get a few key aspects right, from the choice and consequences mechanics to the story's quality, it may very well start attracting more attention. GREYHILL Incident. We're not done with horror games yet. GREYHILL Incident is the last one that we're going to speak of here, and it's definitely a unique one. Why? Well, because it's a classic alien invasion story. Set in a village in the late 90s, you're armed with a gun and a baseball bat, and are tasked with sneaking through what looks like a very creepy village that's been invaded by aliens. You'll help and collaborate with your neighbors in the village, sneak past aliens, and search for tools to help you make it through. The premise is a fascinating one. Here's hoping the execution does it justice. The Plucky Squire. The Plucky Squire is a game that instantly catches the eye, thanks to its gorgeous art style, but there's a lot more to the upcoming action-adventure title than that. Along with its charming storybook aesthetic, the Plucky Squire will also feature a mix of 2D and 3D gameplay, as you swap between the two throughout the experience while undertaking platforming challenges, solving puzzles, taking on enemies, and more. We're hoping to learn much more about the game in the future, but even based on what little we've seen so far, we're excited about how it seems to be shaping up. Hey, did you know that we at Gaming Bolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, hit that bell, and let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.